Joining us now with more legal analysis on BlockFi to discuss is founder of Hodder law firm, Sasha Hodder. Sasha, it's great to have you on. We just have a very quick question for you that we've all been debating. Who gets paid first? 100,000 creditors. The SEC is also one of those creditors, and they are owed 30 million. So who gets paid first?
Yeah, that question of the SEC is a really interesting one. They are in line in front of the retail investors, as far as I understand. So they will get paid before the retail people that they are mandated to help and protect. But I think the prudent thing for them to do here would be to forbear on collecting that debt and let the money go to the retail investors. They don't have to do that, but that would be kind of the right thing for them to do, and maybe give back the money that BlockFi has already paid to them, the 20 million. But we'll see what happens. The money will end up probably going back to FTX though, before any retail investor. So, whose hands is it better served in?
Well, I kind of want to ask you about this because, first of all, has there ever been a situation where the SEC has given back money, disgorged money that it's taken in fines for the sake of market stability? I think that was something that you had said in this. What interest does the SEC really have, first of all, to protect or to even care about the stability of the crypto markets when it doesn't oversee it, and it actually wants to make a point that, hey, you guys need to follow our rules, whether you like it or not, and we're going to make you suffer if you don't?
Yeah, it's, that they don't have any duty to give this money back. It's just usually in negotiations with the SEC over fines, companies will say, hey, this type of fine will send us into bankruptcy. And that's not, for the greater good of the retail consumers. And the SEC usually agrees to that in their negotiations and takes that into account. So here, their fine wasn't exactly what sent the company into bankruptcy, but it certainly started the ball rolling. Three Arrows Capital, I think there was an 80 million debt for BlockFi. So that was, on a similar level to the SEC, 100 million that went to the SEC and the states. So
isn't that kind of
we'll
the
see.
point?
It'll be interesting to watch. I'm kind of doubtful that the SEC will forbear on collecting that debt. And I'm doubtful that they'll even get any money recovered because there's only 256 million to go around.
There might be 256 million to go around, but I mean, isn't it? It's kind of like, isn't this the whole point, though? Isn't the whole point to punish crypto businesses and say, you need to go under our umbrella or else? And look, maybe it's because I'm from New Jersey and we do things a certain way here. When it comes to you want stuff collected, the garbage collected, there's a way things happen here. That's all I'm saying. And it's kind of the way the SEC operates in a lot of ways. It's look, you want protection money. You got to pay the protection money. You got to follow our rules. You got to do what we say you need to do. Isn't the whole point, though, that 250 something million dollars, they're going to say, yeah, that 50 million of that is ours. Right off the bat. We don't care about your customers. We don't care about anything. And I'm trying to figure out what this whole thing with the FTX aspect to it. Why does it go back to FTX?
Well, I think FTX is also a major creditor. So they're owed 275 million. And then there's also someone, Ancura Trust is owed 729 million. So these are, there's a lot of money owed, and a lot of the names were not disclosed, but I think the SEC probably won't be able to recover the full 30 million anyway.
So we just talked about this with Nick as well, but I'd love to hear your take. What do you think is going to happen to all the customers here? Do you think they're going to ever get their money back?
Unfortunately, I don't think they will, unless some miracle happens that someone comes in and provides a bailout to the company to be able to pay off their debts. The customers are really at the bottom of the list here, and it seems like so once the SEC came in and fined BlockFi, then the deal with FTX was established. So FTX took the loan, or kind of bailed out BlockFi. And then that resulted, part of that deal structure was that BlockFi would hold its customer deposits on FTX, which it seems that money is just completely gone. So the SEC, deal really had two parts that ended up hurting retail investors here, but it's very unlikely that they'll get anything back.
I just want you to zoom out a little bit and just think about the several things that are going on. Bahamas is saying, well, this is our baby. This is under our jurisdiction. BlockFi and FTX are clearly entangled because, well, BlockFi sued FTX shortly after filing for bankruptcy. Is there a future in which all of this could actually just come together in one court? Do you see that actually happening?
Oh, like if someone were to buy all of the distressed companies in the crypto space, I don't know if anyone would have that kind of risk tolerance, but I don't see anyone coming in to bail them out. It's not like the traditional finance industry. And, there's another part of this is that there's no insurance. Like the SPIC insures each person that owns stocks up to $500,000 on their stock account. And, there's no insurance like that here. And, it's just a big gamble for people that are investing in these kind of products.
So I just want to come back to what you just said, because it's very disturbing, this idea that customers will just never see their money again. That's a big deal, right? And is there some sort of regulation that might have addressed that? I mean, how does something like that happen? Right? Obviously, there's no FDIC, in this situation. But I think as everyone's thinking about okay, what's the regulatory approach to this? That feels like that shouldn't really be able to happen, right? A customer puts their money somewhere and then the company has a problem when they're like, oh, sorry, guess you're not getting that back. I mean, is there a regulatory fix for that kind of situation? Or is there some sort of regulation that could have prevented that?
Well, I think what the SEC was trying to do to say all of this lending activity should come under this, it all should be considered a security, a debt security. And if it was a security, then it would have to be held on a platform that met certain regulatory standards. It would have to be well capitalized, would have more transparency, would have this insurance available for retail customers, and perhaps would be limited to accredited investors in a lot more respects than it was. It was just available to any retail purchaser. So people, I think there's stories of people who put big chunks of their life savings into these products, and it's just evaporated. So it is really sad, and I don't think it would have happened if the SEC had regulated harder against these companies. It put the fine against BlockFi, but it didn't really shut down the accounts, and it didn't send a strong enough. You'd think $100 million fine would be a strong signal, but it didn't stop the other companies that were already engaged in this activity from continuing on for another few months till they all went bankrupt.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that. Firstly, why? Why didn't it stop these companies? But also, it was 100 million, and we do know that 50 million of that was supposed to go to states, but we don't know whether it actually went to the states. Do you have any information on that?
I don't actually. It just shows. So BlockFi had a repayment schedule outlined to the SEC that every 180 days or every 365 days, it was to make another $10 million payment. So it had already made 2 of its 5 payments. So I'd imagine it had something like that worked out with the states, but I haven't seen any information disclosing that yet.
And could it be that those payments were made with FTX funds?
Very likely it is. Well, or this Ancura Trust, whoever gave them $729 million on June 28th. I think that probably is part of the funds. It'll be interesting, maybe what could happen is the bankruptcy attorneys could So for the first year, once a bankruptcy is initiated, or 90 days of a look back period in Chapter 11, you can call back payments that the companies have made if they weren't for legitimate business purposes. But I think the fines to a regulator, it's clearly a legitimate business purpose at that time, but it could be something that they sue to claw that back. But I think it'll be interesting to watch as that plays out. The lawyers, they've got the same Kirkland and Ellis team that's on the Celsius and Voyager bankruptcies, and they've already been paid $3.4 million. And then another Hayes and Boone attorney team, $2.6 million. So the legal fees that go into these bankruptcies is incredible.